Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shakedown. With me as always, my co-host, my colleague, my friend, my brother, the one that they call Sir Backsteep. How are you doing? Good. So it doesn't matter how you are doing because as always, there's very many F1 centric data which we need to pull in the first instance, chap. Are we witnessing a boring season here, Backsteep? Do McLaren, by dint of Messrs, Norris and Oscar Piastri, need to sort their life out? Because I'm in snooze mode here, Baxty. I feel like I tuned in to see a gangbusters season, a build, a legendary one, the likes of which I can tell my grandsons and daughters about. And now my eyes are being distracted by the mayhem that's going on over in the world of the Premier League and boxing and Rampage Jackson, and there's all these other distractions. Tell me why I'm wrong, Sir Baxty.
This is quite a multi-layered answer, so I hope you forgive me. So, first things first, I wouldn't call this the most boring season we've ever had. I mean, 2023 was just 18 to 2 years ago, where you basically watched a race and you knew who was going to win beforehand. It was that boring. And it wasn't like he was winning close races. He was, disappearing and you barely see him. You'd see him at the start, see him at the end, great. Whereas this year we actually have competitive pugilism at the front of the grid for a championship. Okay, which is something that if you watch an old episode of the Shakedown, then you'll know that that's something that we value highly. But it's what's the best way to put it? I think for a lot of people, it's not our driver. So like we're Lewis guys, that's what drew us into the sport. I know you've got an affiliation for Max as well, and it's like, well, they're not in the championship. Max has dropped off a cliff and sunk without a trace. Ferrari have vanished. And this season that was promising to be sort of a 2010, 2012-esque season, for a variety of reasons, has just failed to materialise. McLaren nailed it this year. I mean, we've got to give them credit. They have been unbelievable this year, technically. Yeah, operationally, they've got some things to work on, but, it's they're definitely going to win both championships this year. That's it. Then we have then we've got the fact that Ferrari shat the bed. Excuse my language, but that's the only way to describe it. 14 points off the constructors, and then
Insane.
they just bottled it and ruined their season in China, which I'm sure we'll get to. And then you've got Red Bull, who clearly haven't fixed their problems and has that the problems that started in 2023 are still manifesting themselves, and they've lost key personnel. It's all a major problem for them, and ultimately we're seeing that play out in real time for Red Bull now. So it will be an interesting season, and I'm excited to see how it plays out because we have that competitive pugilism at the front. But am I as engaged in it as I was with the Brosades years or Max versus Lewis? No, but I'm still interested to see how it all plays out.
Baxter used the term there, pugilism. That's exactly what we don't have, chap. There's no fighting. It's all too polite. When Motorsport Magazine are writing articles saying that this is boring, then if diehard purists and grey, grizzled F1 veterans are saying the same thing now, it's got to be boring. It's all too it is all too after you, Claude, isn't it? I think Elson in Motorsport Magazine's article termed it as being too polite. That Oscar and Lando was season to date, they both want to win a championship of the drivers' variety, of course, but their rhetoric is far too. You know what I mean? It's far too UNICEF and United colours of Benetton, whereas you've got, back in the day, you've got Prost saying that Senna has a death wish and he doesn't believe he... You know what I mean? And all these things. Then you had Lewis and Nico Rosberg throwing caps at each other, and Mansell and Piquet calling each other's wives ugly and all this other stuff. And these two are just like, no, I just want to win for the team. I'm like, fucking, come on, Oscar and Lando. Are we not aware of the stakes? Or... I suspect friend of the channel, Mr. Peter D. Windsor, would say that what else do you want from your drivers? Surely politeness is edifying, worthy of mention, a positive for the sport, not a negative, Baxter.
Yes and no. I mean, I think we've been. Yeah, okay. I will say Lewis, the gentleman racer, but then the Nico years were brutal, and the year with Fernando was brutal as well. But more often than not, it was it was hard affair. Like there were two very notable blow-ups in 2014 and 2016. We don't need to relitigate those. Um, but then we haven't quite had that this year. We haven't had that this year with Lando and Oscar, and I could sense a little bit of tension last at Hungary. Yeah, Oscar was very unhappy at how that race played out. Yeah, there were those that will tell you that actually Oscar McLaren screwed him over. I don't agree with that. I think they just decided to go with a strategy for Lando that works out better. Um, but they are one incident away from this going off the rails. It just hasn't happened. It may not happen. Yeah, with Max and Lewis in 21, it felt inevitable that they were going to hit each other because at some point Lewis was not going to move out the way as he had done in the early part of the season. These two, you're not so sure. I mean, they did hit each other, but that was because Lando was an idiot in Canada. But we'll see. But I think Oscar is starting to bristle a little bit, and he was, as I said, really not happy with what happened in Hungary because realistically, with after what happened with Charles, he should have been in prime position to win that race.
Mate, I hope. I suppose Lando's our last hope, isn't he? That keeping Oscar Piastri honest, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to do it. Not over the course of 10 races. I wouldn't be surprised, Baxley, hot take, you can take this one to the bank, if Oscar Piastri ends up gapping Lando Norris come race 24 to the tune of at least one race victory. I think it will be. I think he'll win this going away, you know, Baxley, and that's my fear, chap, because I'm in it for a levelling of the competitive landscape, and as you term it, proper automotive pugilism and fighting and wheel-to-wheel combat and stakes and chariots of fire. And these guys, McLaren, notwithstanding the fact that they've just signed 100 million title sponsoring McLaren MasterCard, these guys are just bloody snooze-festing the place, stinking the place out.
Yeah, I mean, they've made mistakes this year. I mean, they said that they would try and be operationally better, but there were two notable exceptions, which were Suzuka and Imola, where they had cars that were quick enough to challenge Max, but they were in the wrong order, and therefore they kind of put themselves in a position where it's like, well, you could have won that race if you'd managed it better. They've got better, definitely, as the season goes on. And I think now that they are so far ahead of everybody else, it's now going to be, okay, you two, gloves are off, do what you need to do, just don't hit each other. Whether they abide by that, I don't know. I agree with you. I think Piastri probably wins, but I think it goes to Abu Dhabi. Because I think when I was watching Hungary, and obviously I'm slightly biased by the fact that I was actually there watching it in real time with shares, but it felt like I was watching a driver level up. We were waiting for Lando to make a mistake to let Oscar Piastri pass, and actually the person that made the mistake was Oscar. True. Because Oscar went for a late lunge on the penultimate lap, and both Shez and I felt that if he'd waited a lap, he may well have been able to get past because he just would have been that little bit closer, and Lando would have been powerless to stop it and probably would have felt I might not need to fight this as hard because P2 is still good in the championship. Like, Lando gets a lot of criticism this year, but his consistency has been ridiculous. Same with Oscar as well. He's just made the more high-profile mistakes in comparison to Oscar.
I think I agree with you, Baxley, but I think you mischaracterised Hungary ever so slightly. That Lando ultimately was the benefactor of fluke. He was a fortuitous circumstance merchant. Ultimately, had he got the start that he was supposed to off the line again, what's the term? A start bottle job. Had he got the proper start, then the one stopper wouldn't even been available to him, right? So I don't know. Sometimes you do everything wrong, Sir Baxley, and it comes out right. I just say this as far as like my attention dollars. It feels like with the now that Premier, I mean, I don't even watch football properly anymore. One-time addict. But now that football's kicked back off, Baxley, it's like it's tangible, right? The space, the football feels like it's sucking all of the attention dollars out of the space with Arsenal, and it's Tottenham and it's Liverpool, and then the overlaps back, and it's like So YouTube is doing one of these and pushing out all this content, and Man United, they're going to sack out. There's all these like plots and
Yeah, yeah.
narratives, and it feels like F1's just there with its two empty hands and has no rebuttal, not of consequence for what's going on with the Premier League and Rampage Jackson and his son and all these stuff that's going on in UFC, and there's like it's just chaos, mate. So
I think what I would say in response to that is as I said, we're not as invested in these two as maybe we have been in the past. But one thing I have noticed is that there is a generation of younger fans who are heavily invested in Oscar, who are heavily invested in Lando, and for them this matters. Like they are where we were in 2014, like willing our driver on to win over the other one in the same car. Yeah, and these are the guys that will then carry the sport forward in the years to come. When we're a little bit grayer and a little bit wiser, and they'll then be in our position of going, oh, remember 2025 when Oscar and Lando went toe to toe. It hasn't had the drama of previous title fights, but for those guys, that doesn't matter. Like this is everything for them, and it's probably the first time that they've experienced that.
so it's a good shout. It is a good shout, Sir Baxter. I'm viewing F1 through my very narrow lens, belonging to an old grizzled F1 veteran, and that's probably my the gift and the curse, isn't it? CFV as says Manu in Grimsby Town yesterday was pure cinnamon. It's chaos. I was on a fire up there, but I don't even watch football anymore, so I can't. It's chaos.
It was great. Yeah.
Pure, like impossible theatre. And F1 at the moment in its current form, in the hands of bloody Oscar and OJP and Lando, it's just like the fire's not burning. Maybe listen, we've got 10 races. Hopefully, we'll get that way. But
yeah, it's because we don't have somebody. These guys are good drivers, but then
they're not blockbuster, are they?
No, not yet. Certainly, I think Oscar could get there. I don't think Lando is that level, but I think Oscar is definitely someone who I think could go toe to toe with a Max and with a Lewis,
That's
with
what
a
needs
Fernando,
That's
and with a George. He could hang.
That's what needs
with
to
a Charles
happen.
Leclerc.
Yeah. That's what needs to happen, because Lando
you don't have that top tier driver there as the headline star. So, but it's it'll be fun. It'll be fun. And credit to McLaren for nailing the regs. They've done an amazing job.
Of course. No, they've smashed it. I'm not blaming McLaren necessarily, but just I don't know, sad times. Go on then, Batsy. Let's talk about this Tsunoda-san, because Yuki Tsunoda has given an interview quoted on Autosport where he's talking about the difference between the two cars, and this more pertinent now than ever because Checo Perez is coming back and echoing those sentiments on his victory tour. Vengeance settings from Checo Perez, formerly known as the Mexican Minister of Defense. He said, well, look at all the other second drivers. What have they done? Put some respect on my name. Tsunoda-san has come out today and said probably they didn't recognise that much, especially Helmut, that the difference between me and Max in terms of the package differences. And as soon as they introduced that, being the upgrade at the Belgian Grand Prix, my pace suddenly improved. Quote, in Hungary, the difference between me and Max was very small since practice, and that shows that actually maybe I have some potential. So Baxty, let me put the question to you this way. Are you putting any stock in this second driver conspiracy theory or second car conspiracy theory, even as far as the Red Bull racing car is concerned?
Oh yeah, I've been saying that for years, mate.
Do you think so though, really? Do you think they sabotage it?
I don't think they sabotage it. I think that's a stretch because we're bordering on Mercedes 2024 rhetoric there. But I think what they do is they focus on one car, which is Max's car, and it's Max Verstappen. Of course, you're going to focus on him. We all heard Checo's quote earlier this year, saying that Horner said to him, "We run the second car as an obligation. We just have it there. But we focus on Max." And I think Checo's been proven right, given the struggles with the second car this year, particularly Lawson and stuff. But I think it's no coincidence that as soon as Lauren Mekis came in and said, right, put that upgrade on Yuki's car, the deficit between them came down. Yuki was 3 tenths off in Spa. Okay, Max had a messy lap, but he was 3 tenths off. And then in Hungary, he was only a tenth off. Now, unfortunately, people say, well, hang on, Yuki went out in Q1, and he did. That's how close the field spread was, and it's also a testament to how crap the Red Bull was um, in in Hungary as well. I mean, it was a mess. Shez and I were sat by the chicane, and we could see how the Red Bull just had no confidence to be able to ride the curves and get a better slingshot out of the chicane. At least Max gave us some entertainment on the Sunday by overtaking people in there. But the stupid thing with the whole we just prioritize one car is Max doesn't need that. He's better than pretty much every driver on the grid at the moment anyway. I mean, for me, he's been the best driver this year. So he doesn't need that. He will be faster in equal machinery regardless, whoever you put in that second car on current form. So I do accept that there probably was unequal treatment, and Checo was trying to sort of quietly say it whilst he was at the team, and has pretty much not hidden the fact that it was there. But and also you are going to prioritize your lead driver's feedback, of course you are, and if Max wants the car to go a certain direction, you've got to take it there because it's your best chance of winning. But is it the best for running two cars? I don't think so.
I mean, well, to your point, Baxley, Dan Fallows said exactly the same thing, right? That when you have a driver that's more embedded by dint of his ability and his tenure at a team, then automatically you're gonna listen loudest to his feedback because he's Max Verstappen and he's a four-time champion. Can you imagine you start deferring? This is another point, Baxley. Imagine you start deferring to Tsunoda-san and trying to build a car in his image, knowing all the while that he's probably not going to be there next year. Like, why would you? Why would you do that? It's nonsensical. I'm not sure though. I think the conspiracy theory of it being Max's car. I think there are some crumbs that indicate that there might be something to that. 2022 is a brilliant example when all of a sudden Checo seemed like he was going to become the man and mount a challenge for the championship of the drivers' variety because of the handling dynamic of the car then was understeer, and all of a sudden Max has a word with Helmut, who has a word with Jos, who in turn has a word with Adrian Newey, and then they start designing the car more for Max, more on the nose as far as its handling dynamic, and then we get to Miami and Checo doesn't see which way Max Verstappen goes yet again. But then again, Fallows says that we just listened more to Max's feedback. It's a misnomer to characterise that circumstance by saying that Red Bull only designed a car for Max Verstappen.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that they have prioritized his feedback, but I think that in doing so, they have made the second car undrivable. And clearly, why Christian Horner ended up getting fired was because part of the reason for that was because they were looking at it going, well, we've got a guy possibly competing for the Drivers' Championship, but he's looking out with it when Horner was fired. And then that's got worse over time. And then, you've got the second car, which has just been a complete disaster. You had Checo barely clinging on for dear life, who has basically been vindicated by the poor performance of the second car this season. You had Liam Lawson, who looked like he'd never sat in a car before, let alone driven an F1 car, and actually he's now starting to rebuild himself at VCarb, had a very good last few races. And then you've got Yuki, who was nailing it in the VCarb for years, and then as soon as he gets in the Red Bull, looks like he's never sat in a car before. So clearly there was an issue with that second car, but it wasn't sort of by design. It was just one of those things. And I think it's a testament to how good Max is. But I don't think he will ever get that set up again in Formula One, regardless of where he goes to, if he doesn't stay at Red Bull beyond 2026.
But to that point, Sebastian, there's been a lot of chat over the past 7 days around who will be in that Oracle Red Bull racing car alongside Maximilian Verstappen as at 2026 to save a dying poppy. So who's your money on?
It's not Alex Palou, I can tell you that much,
Oh.
because that ain't happening. As fun as it would be to see, because I think Alex is really good. I don't know, to be honest with you. I think probably Hadja, because I don't see Yuki's unless Yuki really starts delivering and out qualifies Max and probably doesn't win a race, but yeah, starts getting some podiums and shows that he's worth keeping. I don't see him staying. They've already done Lawson. There's no point bringing him back, and I think they're not going to chuck Lindblad straight in.
Are they not?
No, I don't think so.
They should not. They should
They
not.
sh- they shouldn't. I mean, and now that Horner's gone, I think if Horner was there, they probably would. But now he's gone, I think Mekis is definitely a lot calmer in that regard. So I think what they'll do is they'll ditch Yuki. He'll go off to Aston and be the reserve. They'll then bring in Hadja to be Max's number two. But it will be a much fairer experience for him in that, as in that they will run two cars and actually run like a proper F1 team, and not just let it be the Max Verstappen team. Yeah, Max will hand him his arse. That's goes without saying. And then I think they'll keep Liam to be the experienced driver at VCarb, who will then look to go somewhere else after that, and they'll have Arvin Lindblad alongside him.
I concur, sir. And Hertz, so you're a legend. Absolutely goated, and I'm great for ad infinitum out here gifting memberships like nobody's business. EasyG says, put some respect on Lando Norris's name. I think they will call up Hajar. Daniel says, it's one thing to listen to one driver's input to a car and another to have two different cars. People don't want to recognise that Max Verstappen is the GOAT. Go on then, Max Sabaxty. Look at that. Look at that alliteration or something like that. Go on, let's talk about Ferrari very quickly, because mate, how it's hard to understand. There's so many different threads at which we need to pull if we're going to deal with the Scuderia Ferrari circumstance properly. Lewis struggling, talking about they need to replace me in the car. The car's not great. Frederick Vasseur just been kept on or extended at the very least. Charles Leclerc struggling. There's chat about him running out of patience with the red team and the yellow badge and the black prancing Corsa top. So Baxter, imagine that you're the team principal or a C-suite exec level bod at Scuderia Ferrari. How do you fix this?
Well, you've been off this year and put all your effort into next year. I mean, China has completely derailed their season. That floor disqualification for Lewis has ruined them. They thought they had a concept that would help them challenge for the title on both fronts. But then they had to raise the ride height of the car, which has completely screwed Lewis over. He needs that car low for the way he needs to set up a car. Charles can drive around it a little bit more, but it's he can only go as fast as the car can take him. They lowered the floor in Hungary. That's why he was so competitive. But then, as has been revealed today by Ferrari, they investigated it. He said it was a chassis issue. No chassis issue. It was their tyre pressure increase that they had to do to avoid a second disqualification that led to his drop off in pace. That to me suggests that A, you've got correlation problems between your wind tunnel and on track. So you've got to sort that out. And B, changing your concept was a bad idea. It was a bad idea. You should never have done it. History tells you it does not work. Look at McLaren 2013. Thought they'd have a rocket ship on their hands by the end of 2013. They went nowhere. So I think for them, just completely bin off next year. Listen to both your drivers for next year. Listen to Lewis. Listen to what he's telling you and trying to implement the changes that he wants you to make. Saying, I know how to win championships. This is how you do it. And then build up a platform and enable both Charles and Lewis to be able to drive your cars as fast as possible at the front of the grid to potentially end your title hoodoo.
I was just about to say, Sir Baxter, do you build a car in the image of Sir Lewis and understand that he wants a car that he can run super low and, do you know what I mean, be super aggressive on the brakes, etc., etc.? Or if building a car, if you've got to pick, surely the low-hanging fruit is to build a car in the image of Charles Leclerc now, to give him the best chance because he's probably the quicker driver. He's going to be there for longer, etc. And again, you don't want to do, as we hypothesised before with Max, you don't want to build a car that he can't drive quickly with a view to have him leave the team and go to Red Bull or Aston Martin or Mercedes in 2027, though.
You can sort of do both because you can rely on both of their feedbacks. Like, I think Lewis is trying to do more fundamental stuff with the team. He's trying to do what Michael did, but in less time. As in, he's trying to completely knock that team ground and build it back up. Because he's been talking openly about how things haven't been he's just this so different to Mercedes, and he's just like this just isn't right at all, and he's kind of screaming on the inside. Um, and I think Ferrari need to listen to him. But when it comes to the feedback and how you push the development of the car forward, I mean, at the moment, yeah, you have to listen to Charles. He's getting podiums, he's getting pole position, he's delivering the results at the moment. But you can still listen to Lewis as the voice of experience in that regard. And I think, look, do I think Lewis is going to win an eighth at Ferrari? No, sadly, I don't think it's going to happen. I think that dream is dead. But I think his greatest legacy at Ferrari may not be race wins, or I'm sure he'll get some. But what I think he'll do is he can set that team off at six. I've just seen a comment. I need to call this out, saying tough to build a team when you're a second driver by several tenths. There's only a tenth between them in qualifying, so get out of it. Lewis has been improving this year. Should he have got it on it quicker? Yeah, absolutely. But there's not much of a gap between them in qualifying. So I'm not having this Lewis is getting whomped nonsense.
Is it, Sir Baxter, it's interesting when you look at the numbers on paper because at times, season to date, it hasn't felt like that. Do you know what I mean?
There have been times where Charles has been
mate.
quicker, but the overall season, um, the overall season deficit between Lewis to Charles is not that bad.
Yeah, no, Benson's...
It really isn't that bad.
Yeah, Benson's outlined it's a couple of tenths max, but at a time... Baxter, before I was quite surprised reading those numbers from Benson, because in my mind, on average, I'm looking like 3 tenths, 2.5, 3 tenths, but apparently
it's closer than people think. I mean, obviously the last two races haven't helped Lewis because he was ranking those last two races. Absolutely, no defense.
But not
for
in
him
qualifying.
From me.
Not in qualifying.
Yeah, he was crap in quality.
Last race, Hungary, true.
But also another problem that Ferrari have is they have to lift and coast pretty much the whole time. So it looks like they're just kind of not making any ground, but they can't push the car for whatever reason.
Right.
Lewis was lifting and coasting in the hot, dirty air of Kimi Antonelli for the entirety of the race. You can't do anything in that situation.
Oof.
Yeah.
Bruce says that Charles will still be faster than Lewis in a car built for Lewis. Oh, the humanity.
The humanity.
It's as we round third base, it's a bit late for such blasphemy, Bruce. You're a legend. Safak says, Baxter, do you miss Max versus Lewis?
Who doesn't miss Max versus Lewis? It was blockbuster stuff. If anyone says they don't miss that, they're lying.
I miss that, Baxter.
I miss it. It was amazing.
Now more than ever. Have you watched over the summer break any of those 2021 races? Because I have.
No.
I just want to. I want to remember.
I've got more important things to worry about.
This is true. This is true. Yeah. No, mate, I don't know. I've been watching like Grill the Grid, and they keep talking about all these historic things and Prost and Senna, and then I went up to watch Hill yesterday, and it was just rubbish. So I ended up watching a bit of Senna again, I just want to feel backstage. You know what I mean? I want something to make me feel like I'm trackside, even though I'm nowhere near techie.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hopefully, Oscar and Lando can give it to us. Go on then. And in closing, Baxter, talk to me about this George Russell stuff, because he said something to this effect, that if anybody's at risk of losing their seat at the Boys of Girls from Brackley and Brixworth, then he has a name, and it is not King George Russell. He says that Kimi Antonelli is the one who risks losing his seat, and potentially if Max Verstappen pervades his environment and the competitive landscape in 2026 and decides that he wants to drive for Mercedes for anywhere up to $100 million as rumoured, that potentially Toto will kick out Kimi Antonelli. What do you make of this, Baxter?
I honestly don't think he was wrong. I mean, George Russell's very rarely wrong. I mean, who was the one that called the Ferrari tyre pressure thing? It was George, and everyone was like, no, don't be silly. Gary Anderson saying, oh, shut up, George. George was right. Yeah. I think probably it was the case. Like, Toto doesn't fear putting two alpha drivers in the team. Mercedes has always operated on a two number one driver basis unless they absolutely have to. Basically 17, 18, 21 are the three examples of that. But I think Kimi has been fine this year.
Has he though,
Like
Baxter? Go on then. Has he
that's what I'm saying.
really?
That's what I'm saying. Fine,
Okay, cool,
fine. I'm not
cool.
saying great. Like
Yeah.
he's
Early on,
early
copy,
on he was good. He was good.
copacetic.
Got the pole sprint pole in Miami, which was superb. Really great lap.
But ever since,
Bar the podium in Canada, like basically since the podium in Canada, that's where it really went downhill for him. Yeah, he was okay in Hungary. The Mercedes wasn't particularly great. I think George delivered a fantastic result and benefited from Charles being slow in the last stint. But yeah, Kimmy's a young kid and he's got to learn a lot. He is fast, but I just think that it's maybe he could have benefited from another year in F2, but unfortunately they needed to get him in last year because otherwise he would have gone somewhere else, and they didn't want to risk losing him, which I fully understand. Um, but yeah, I think if they were going to make a decision, it would have been on Kimi for sure, and they would have sent him off to Alpine to sort of earn his stripes and then bring him back. But no, I think it would have been him that goes. George, I think is set for now, but that contract still hasn't been signed yet, so I'm a little bit concerned.
does Max accept the proposition of going over to Mercedes to partner one King George Russell?
I think if the car's there, yeah, absolutely. I think that is definitely his preferred destination. I still think Aston would be a great fit for him, but for whatever reason, he clearly wants to steer clear of the Stroll nonsense, which I don't blame him for. But yeah, no, Mercedes would be his preferred choice. As a Mercedes fan, I'd welcome him at the team. People may be surprised to hear me say that, but I'm like, he's a four-time world champion with 60 plus race wins. Of course, I want him at the team. Um, him and George would be cinema. I think it would be a lot closer than people think it would.
Oh my goodness!
I mean, I think
Oh
Max
my
beats
goodness.
him. I think Max beats him. I want that to be on record. But I think it would be very, very close, and George will have no issue putting Max in the wall, and vice versa. Um,
Baxter, to that point, I think Max. I'm not sure that would work out well for George. I don't. Listen, he fights like he's a fighter and he's a killer,
Yeah.
and he stops at nothing to gain even
Yeah.
a millisecond of time on track. Of course, I'd love to see it, and it'd be blockbuster. I can't overstate that fact, but somehow for me, as a part-time George Russell fan, I don't think I want that for George Russell.
I would say.
I don't think
that,
he realizes the strength of the Maximilian Verstappen storm that's coming. If that,
what I would say to that is that Max won't have the same environment at Mercedes as he would have at Red Bull. So like he wouldn't be like the overwhelming center of attention. Like Mercedes would be like, no, we've had George here for years. You two equal machinery, off you go. Fight it out amongst yourself, lads, and just don't hit each other. That. And I think it would be a lot closer than people think. As I said, I think Max would have enough in hand to beat George at this moment in time. But George is very, very fast. He is very, very fast, and people forget how quick he is. They seem to downplay him all the time. It was Lewis fans for the last 3 years. Now it's every other fan downplaying him this year. I think behind Max, he's probably been the best driver this year, along with Oscar and Charles, I would say.
Some say, I saw a poll saying that he was driver of the year season to date.
No, that's Max.
The Max's flame when it's burned at its brightest. Those are the moments that you remember, Ray. Although George did out-qualify Max that once to the tune of a tenth and a half. I can't remember the track. Canada.
Yeah, that lap.
He's not bad, George. I mean, F1 maths, right? When you can do them things to Maximilian Verstappen, a four-time champion, fire-breathing dragon of a F1 peddler, then you got to put some respect on
Max
George.
Verstappen, who was still hunting a championship at that point as well.
Mate, let some of that Max fella. I think that's why I'm a bit cheesed off, Baxter, because I want to see the greatest ones do great things. This is the reason why I've been frustrated all the while. Lewis the past few years, and Alonso the past bloody 20 years, as near as makes no difference.
Shout out to my guy Double, who basically said this season is basically Damon versus Shaq in '96.
Oof. Yeah. I see.
In terms of like he was invested in it being Canadian, and he wanted Shaq to win. And I'm sure Brits were invested in '96 because they wanted Damon to win, particularly after what happened in '94. But in terms of the overall package, the best driver was in a Ferrari that year, and everyone knows he was the best driver. But
Yeah,
that Ferrari was dog crap.
yeah.
You know,
No, it's fair. It is fair. I think I just want to see. I don't know. It puts a smile on my face to even reminisce about Silverstone pole or Saudi Arabia, Jeddah Corniche or Suzuka. It's like, what? How? Like, what? Do you know what I mean? Alchemy. It doesn't even make sense. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. And then
yeah.
the RB21
Oh, that car's fallen off a cliff. Like it's been so bad to see that happen. And yeah, I don't think Max is definitely level. I don't think it was as high as it was in 24, but I think in terms of overall qualifying has been better. But I think overall, and he's made some untypical mistakes. I mean, Spain was just a disgrace.
chaos.
Yeah,
Chaos. And he
yeah,
doesn't need to do that.
yeah. No, he doesn't. But yeah, it's yeah.
It is the seasonal variance of the weird and wacky world that is the one that EasyG says being a champion in other formulas won't suffice in Formula One, alluding, of course, to Alex Pillow. Safak says arrogant is George's middle name. Down with F1 Muppet says Buddha. And then Daniel says yes, agrees. Is George arrogant?
Yeah, of course he is. All F1 drivers are arrogant. Even the ones that aren't arrogant are arrogant. It's part of their makeup. Racing drivers are arrogant. They do an incredibly difficult job, and you need to be arrogant in that world. Otherwise, you'll get eaten up. And people say, "Oh, but Yuki Tsunoda's really nice." On the outside, he is. I'm sure
Yeah.
behind the scenes,
Yeah.
he's arrogant. Same with Lando. Lando's a happy, nice guy, but he has those moments where he says things that gets everybody riled up, and it's like,
But there is something about George. I like George a lot and I respect him as a driver and as a person, but there is something. It feels like George is the most hated man on the grid, whether it's the Sir Lewis Hamilton extremists and fundamentalists that expected George to come in and wipe Lewis Hamilton's bottom because he's 7-time champion, etc. Or anyone else. Charles Leclerc fans don't seem to like him. I don't know. There's something about George. He's going to have to win a championship, isn't he? Success erodes. Yeah, success is the best erosion of hatred, I think, in that sense.
Like, I feel like if you're not arrogant as a racing driver, then you probably don't make it to the top level. You have to have
You've got to have something,
an air of arrogance just to make it. You know, it's. I mean, look at Gabby Bortoleto, the start of the season, prime example. Helmut Marko says he's a C tier driver, and Gabby goes, "I'll show him," and he's been unbelievable this year.
He's not been bad.
Like he's in Rookie of the Year conversation.
He's not been half bad.
Yeah,
he's done well, bless him. Go on then, Baxis. Round third base. Prediction time to save a dying puppy. Who have you got for the Dutch Grand Prix? I will need a pole pick and I will need a race victor pick from you, sir.
Oh, okay. I've only predicted the race one. I'm on a 5-race win streak actually, so I'm expecting to get it to 6 very soon.
Do you want me to give you some odds? I can tell you the favourites.
Yeah.
So,
I know who I've got for the win. It's the pole I need to think about.
So I think Lando and Oscar are joint favourites for the pole, and then you have Max. I think Max is 7-1. Not like I'm paying attention for the pole, and then you've got Charles Leclerc about 16s to 1, I think.
I think I'm going to go for a double here, and I'm going to go Lando for both. I predicted Lando for the race earlier this week. I think this is definitely more of a Lando track
100.
than Oscar. Like Oscar was stinky here last year. He will be better because he's shown that at tracks where he has been crap, that he will be better. But I think if I was right in what I thought I saw from Lando, I think he'll do the double this weekend and he'll win. But I think Max will be in the conversation for a podium, as will Charles, I think.
Oof.
Maybe George as well.
Oof.
And it's going to be wet.
Wow, okay.
That's the thing. It's going to be a wet one.
Do you not need to recalibrate everything you've just said then, Sir Baxty? Bearing in mind that there's a young Dutch fella.
How many wet races has he won this year? 0. Well, he's not won any this year. They've been won by the McLarens.
But then, so you're talking to a paradigm shift, right? The way that they've got to Silverstone's a perfect example. They couldn't afford to set the car up for the wet and put downforce on there because he would have been nowhere in quali, right? And the pole would have been gone.
Australia. Spa.
True. But you saw that. Yeah, Spa
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. Like
Australia, mate. Though
it
bloody
does
hell.
it doesn't matter like how good Max is in the wet, how good Lewis is in the wet, how good all these guys are in the wet. Like that McLaren is just the class of the field. They could score 1,000 points in the constructors' championship this year.
That's chaos, record-breaking settings. I'll tell you what, though, Baxter, not to do a revisionist historian thing, but if I recall from Australia, it was changeable conditions. I think if you had like a Brazil 2024, then we'd have ourselves a proper conversations. Fingers crossed for Max Verstappen fans all over the world that's what we see at the Dutch Grand Prix.
I just think that McLaren is just too good, and I think one of them will get it in the rain regardless. I think I would back Lando more than Oscar in that situation. I mean, Oscar's made some mistakes in the wet this year, which I think was why I would say that. Yeah. But I would say, yeah, for sure, we've got to see how that one plays out. But I would back Lando in the wet over Oscar.
Interesting that, Baxter. I'm not going to tell you any lies. I'm not sure. Changeable conditions, I will go Oscar Piastri. Do you know what I mean? Unless Maximilian Verstappen can get his nose in front in pole, and then maybe he does.
He's going to have the home race buff. Like the home race buff is real. He's going to. Lewis nearly got a podium in Silverstone despite being nowhere near it all season. So
he's going to want to. He's going to come and want to. He's going to want to. He's going to want it to be a celebratory circumstance at his home Grand Prix in Zandvoort.
Of course, and he was annoyed he didn't win it last year.
Yeah,
so
maybe. And his record, Baxter, ain't bad around here, is it? Over the last four podiums, 3 race victories, and 3 poles.
P2. Yeah,
mate. So it's one of those ones, just like Suzuka, that the bookmakers, if they know anything about life, shouldn't 7-1. Don't know.
Yeah.
Max
So I think probably. Max will probably get P3 behind the McLarens, but they'll be in a different postcode. And I at the moment I back Lando to get that job over Oscar at the moment.
Ooh.
But this could be the one where they have a little skirmish and it all heats up a little bit.
True. Yeah. It's a matter of when, not if, surely at this point. So Baxter, you've been an absolute legend as always. Guys and girls in the chat, thank you so much. I'm grateful ad infinitum, do you know what I mean? And I make no apologies for labouring that point from the legend that is Sir Baxter B of Baxter B F1 and Shifting Happens. I've been your boy Cameron as per usual. Between now and next time, remember to look but never stare.